Welcome to Perth. McDiarmid Park is the venue for Rangers against St Johnstone today in the Scottish Premiership. Big game as ever, even bigger by the ongoing narrative that Rangers could go top of the Scottish Premiership table today. Not just on goal difference, they could go too clear if they're able to do the business against St Johnstone here in a 12 o'clock kickoff. We're going to look through the teams as ever, just me today with everyone else on holiday, so bear with me. I'll get through as many of your comments as possible once we've spoken through the team and the bench. So here is the Rangers team, and there's a few surprises. I think 5 changes from midweek. Jack Butland starts in goals, a back four of James Tavernier, Connor Goldson, John Souttar and Borna Barisic. John Lundstrom plays in midfield with Mohamed Diomande, and it's his second start in the Rangers shirt, his first start in the league. He obviously started home against Ayr United last weekend. Todd Cantwell, who is arguably Rangers' informed player at the moment, I'd say will likely be ahead of them. We'll talk about the midfield structure in a second. Oscar Cortez on the left, I think that was to be expected given that Rabbi Matondo came off at halftime due to injury in midweek for Rangers in that victory at Ibrox over Ross County. Scott Wright may be a bit of a surprise to start on the other flank, but I guess it's a continuation, as with the entire team, of what we've seen from Philippe Clement so far, which is that he's going to rotate as much as possible over this stretch with so many games to try and keep everyone fresh. That extends to the top end of the pitch as well. Cyril Dessers scored 2 goals. Could have had more in midweek, but it's Fabio Silva who starts up top. Let's read the team out for you. Sorry, the bench out as well. I'll get the St Johnstone team to you as soon as we get it. It's McCrory, Ridvan Dessers, Lawrence Sterling, who comes back onto the bench, Balogun, King, Balogun also back on the bench, King, Raskin and McCausland. So a strong reserve for Rangers to call upon if they need to. Let's get to some of the comments. Understandably, a lot of excitement about the fact that Rangers could go top of the league if they do their job today, if they win the game. RFC 5 stars saying it's a big day today, and Chris saying it's time to go top of the league. Let's get to the first talking point, which I think is the fact that it is no Ross McCausland on the right-hand side. It's Scott Wright. Blair Cockburn says McCausland needed a rest. Wright will have to get stuck in and produce. And it's a similar comment from Joe here, who's a member, saying, I think it's fair that Wright starts because McCausland looked exhausted, but hopefully he'll be on after 60 minutes or so. Yeah, it's easy to forget with Ross McCausland, isn't it, that it was only a few months ago he hadn't actually started a professional game for Rangers. And Scott Wright, I think he's tended to fall into a pattern really throughout his Rangers career that when he started, he's not really been able to produce consistently. He's had flashes, he's had moments. Think back to when Giovanni Van Bronckhorst first came in. He played well in that stretch before the winter break. He scored at Hampden a couple of times. Managers seem to like him, and I guess that comes into the fact that he's a hard-working player as well. I think sometimes when he's wide on the right, he's not. If you watch the way McCausland plays, a lot of the time he'll spin inside and he won't actually attack the byline. Maybe that's something he should do a little bit more. But he's quite often moving inside the pitch, which I think gives Rangers a nice dynamic. They've got more people who are just running at teams under Philippe Clement. Whereas Scott Wright, I feel when he's playing as a right winger, when he's isolated out wide, he's a little bit more one-dimensional in terms of the way that he hits the byline. So we'll see if he can produce end product today. It is a big chance for him, as ever. We'd expect to see Ross McCausland at some point. And the other, I guess, surprise is that it's Borna Barisic over Ridvan. Scott says he's not happy with the fact that it is Borna Barisic starting instead of Ridvan. I can understand that as well because Ridvan's been in such good form. But what it seems like Clement is doing, and I think we've seen the opposite of this at times, again, to go back to Giovanni Van Bronckhorst, is that Rangers have had a starting 11 and stuck with that religiously and not really changed things. Where I think, whether you think the squad is strong enough or not, and clearly it could be stronger in some of these positions, Rangers are still in 3 tournaments. And although they've not got a midweek game next week to necessarily rotate and rest players for, I think what you can see Clement is trying to do is making sure that hypothetically, if Ridvan is out injured for a couple of weeks, if something were to happen, Borna Barisic is ready to come in and he's sharp right away. I think the same extends for Scott Wright. You see Tom Lawrence drop out. Not too surprised at that because I think it makes sense to have some more legs in there. And we'll come on to Mohamed Diomande. But that is what I think Clement is trying to do. We saw it at St Mirren away a couple of weeks ago as well, didn't we? Where I don't think Rangers had a midweek game, or maybe they did against Aberdeen. But it's about, I think, trying to build up the minutes, the fitness of the squad. And I think that extends to today's lineup. Gordon says, I would like to have seen Cortez on the other wing, Dessers up front and Silva out on the left. I agree with that, Gordon, and I think a lot of people probably would as well. But here's why I don't think they've done that, because I think it's all about the depth they have in specific positions. So if you were to put Cortez on the right and Silva on the left, although I think that would be intriguing to see that today. Firstly, I don't think we'll see Silva off the left in this system. If it was a 4-3-3 and maybe if we saw some tweaks to it, with maybe someone else dropping into the number 10 position, then I think we could. But the position on the left does so much work backwards defensively, and I'm not saying that Silva doesn't work hard, because I think complete opposite of what we've seen of him in a Rangers shirt so far. But you probably don't want him as the left player in a kind of 4-4-2 off the ball. You probably want him higher up in one of those two positions, the number 10 or the striking position. So I think that's probably why you won't see him off the left that much in a Rangers shirt. Might be wrong. Also, if you then put Cortez on the right, you probably lack a bit of depth on the left. We know Matondo's out injured today, and I think the same goes for the centre forward position. Clement probably wants to have fresh legs to come off the bench in that number 9 spot. That's what we've seen so far. But I think Oscar Cortez he's been bright, really bright. Should have scored against Ross County when he came off the bench. But in that start against Ayr as well, he looks direct, he looks positive, he looks pretty aggressive. I've liked how he's quite unpredictable in the way that he dribbles, and again, we've not seen all that much of him so far, but for a 20-year-old kind of being dropped into Scottish football, he looks like he's going to be a winger with pretty good decision-making as well, even if he did miss in midweek. So we will see what happens with that performance today, but looking forward to seeing him from the start as well. Comment here from Easy OK. What should we expect from Diomande? A similar role to Lawrence or something in between? Well, Tom Lawrence, to set the scene, I think what he's done so far is, obviously in dropping back a little bit, has given Rangers a nice balance, because they want to attack quite quickly under Philippe Clement. They want to be direct to points and go over the top of the opposition defensive line. And the reason I think that's worked quite well with Lawrence is because you're using his passing range from deep. And then something that we saw in both games, the Ross County game and the Aberdeen game at Ibrox, is that it's natural for him to make forward runs. So I think what we've seen a lot in the past with the Rangers midfield domestically is it's not natural for them to really upset the balance of the opposition defence. Whereas Tom Lawrence, whether it is getting the ball and breaking a line with a pass, which I think he did really well for Rangers' second goal, Cyril Dessler's second goal against Ross County, where the ball goes out to James Tavernier, but instead of passing it around and allowing this Ross County defence a bit of time to recover, he kind of sidestepped his man, which was a bit of a risk, but a worthy risk as well. And then Tavernier had the time to pick out of his cross. He's doing that, but then also at points he's making forward runs, and it's natural for him then to, I think, get the ball deep, maybe try and break a line, and then move in to receive with his back to goal. That allows Todd Cantwell to push up higher as well. So I think it's been a good fit so far. I think the question is, off the ball, does he have the legs in certain types of games? This would be one of them, I'd imagine. The pitch doesn't look great, especially kind of at my side of the home stand. Looks like it might cut up quite badly, so I guess that will be a factor as well. What should we expect from Mohamed Diomande? Speaking last week, he said he's capable of playing at the number 6 position, the number 10 position, or the number 8 position. Expect it to be Lundstrom as the deepest, Diomande on the left-hand side, and Todd Cantwell as the highest, maybe drifting to the right a little bit more when Rangers are in possession. But we've not seen too much of Diomande. I thought he's looked, again, sharp from the bench when we've seen him so far, and that's only obviously been on a couple of occasions. He's someone who I think can be press resistant, receive with his back to goal, can carry the ball, seems to have quite a complete midfield profile. Probably quite a difficult pitch to show that today, but I do think it's the type of player, the style of player that Rangers probably have lacked in different ways since a Glenn Kamara or a Joe Rebo left that midfield. So we'll see what he brings today. No surprises that it is Todd Cantwell and John Lundstrom, the two informed players who join him in the middle. Phil says, let's hope the centre-backs are a bit stronger in this game. They need to cut out the sloppy goals. Yeah, I tend to agree with that. If you look at the goals that Rangers have conceded against Aberdeen and Ross County, they've been strikingly similar in that it's been a ball, kind of a blind pass over the top. And that's maybe been the one moment where Rangers centre-backs haven't been switched on. I think that aside, and both Goldson and Suter have spoken about this, how the defensive approach has changed under Clement a little bit. I think that aside, Rangers have looked pretty strong defensively, not conceded too many chances, but it has been those moments, whether it's switching off, getting caught under the ball, just an opposition striker taking a chance. But of course, St Johnstone, I'm sure, will have looked at that ahead of this game and be wary of that. So something that Rangers will have to be wary of as well. Neil saying he loves Clement's team selections. He thinks it brings togetherness. It's something that players have spoken about as well when they've been out the squad. You can be very quick back in, and Clement does want to create a big squad where everyone feels a part of it, and certainly that they the team selection as of late would tend to agree with that. And I think a lot of excitement in the team. Neil thinks it's a potential banana skin. He's saying 2-0 Rangers with Cortez and Silva. And I think that's true. Rangers are the team in the ascendancy at the moment. If they win today, they are a team with momentum behind them. But Clement has said at points, listen, they will hit a wall at some point. There will be a game where things just don't fall for you. You don't score chances. Think back to that game against Aberdeen where they needed a late James Tavernier penalty to get a point, which doesn't look such a bad point in hindsight. But they had a lot of opportunities on that day. And these games, especially in early kickoff, as Derek and I have been speaking about in the morning briefing this week, I never feel that Rangers play well here at McDiarmid Park, let alone in a 12 o'clock kickoff. And of course, it's going to be a potential banana skin. But also, you've got to say that Rangers are the form team and they should be confident so far. I think if you look back to the Ross County game in midweek, while it was frustrating to not score another goal, if you'd said to people, look, when Clement comes in February, you could potentially go top of the league. You could have won the League Cup. You could have topped the Europa League group. People would have definitely taken that with obviously just one domestic defeat. I think the two things that Rangers are going to have to prove over this title race is number one, winning when they don't play well and kind of grinding that out over a consistent basis. And then number two is the Old Firm games. They need to go and win a meaningful Old Firm game, which they've not done for far too long, and there's a bit of an unknown about it. Rangers haven't really been in a head-to-head title race. I know they were under Giovanni Van Bronckhorst to a degree, but that kind of, for me, ended in April as the Rangers goalkeepers come out ahead of me here. And also the real focus, of course, naturally was on the Europa League final as well. So I think they're the two things that Rangers will, until they've done them, it will always be held against them because, they haven't won many titles as of late. They haven't won enough Old Firm games, but on the flip side of that, what have they failed to achieve under Clement so far? That aside, they've built consistency. They've built an identity. They've managed to repair a relationship with the fan base. I think to a degree that you come to games like this and there's a far greater feeling of optimism and promise, which wasn't there a few months ago, to say the least. Martin saying he thinks it will be 2-0 today. Cortez is due a goal. He's hit the post a couple of times. It's true, as mentioned, he should have probably scored in midweek. A good pressure from the Ross County goalkeeper as well today. And Jamie saying, just finishing on that point I was saying a minute ago, today will tell if Rangers can handle the pressure of going, if we can handle the pressure of going for the league. Yeah, totally agree, Jamie. But Clement, I'd imagine when he's asked about it post-match, will just be laser focused as he's been so far. And I think that is what's helped probably the Rangers team in coping with the outside noise is that he's very much focusing on the next game, very much got his head down and trying to work on improving Rangers and not worrying about what is going on elsewhere. And just finally, Logan, in case you missed it a second, how's the pitch looking? Not great. It looks as if it might cut up, especially towards the dugouts. I think you'll see as the teams come out. It's not being watered at the moment. It was watered quite extensively, I think, pre-match. So the pitch inspection from up here in the media gantry, not great, but we will see how it holds up. Right, we're going to leave it there. It's just me today, so I will be live with you at some point after the game, after the press conferences. You can catch our instant analysis where we kind of just look at the big talking points. Not really a report of the game, but it's more discussing a player who scored a goal, a contentious moment, looking at key stats, trying to draw on previous themes of work that we have on the website. So you can read that at full time on the Rangers Review. Stay up to date with us on our socials. We'll then have coverage of both the press conferences, what Philippe Clement and the player has to say before coming back on here to discuss that all with all of you who join, hopefully talking about a positive result. But until then, thanks very much for joining me pre-match. Enjoy the game wherever you're watching it, and we'll speak to you after this one. Bye.